Okay, so before this video begins, I need to go ahead and state a quick disclaimer for those who are only watching the new anime and who are new to the When They Cry series. This video will contain a lot of spoilers, especially for the Onikakushi arc and the later arcs of the series, so if you're not familiar with the Higurashi franchise, or if you're just watching the new anime for the first time, like, if you've not seen any other Higurashi adaptations, if you've not read the manga or visual novel, I highly recommend that you do not watch this video, because I will go into deep spoiler territory throughout this video. Alright, so Higurashi When They Cry 2020 Episode 1. Before I get deep into the review, I'm gonna go ahead and give it a score from 1 to 10. And I am gonna give it an 8. Yeah, I thought it was actually a really good first episode to reintroduce the world of Higurashi. It definitely had the same pacing as the Studio Dean adaptation of the show. I'm gonna say this now. I felt like the pacing of the first episode of the Studio Dean version of the show was actually the best pacing they could have done for episode 1. You got into the world of Higurashi, like you got to meet the characters, you got to see, you know, the kids having fun, because in Higurashi, half the story is the kids actually having fun before things go to hell. This new 2020 adaptation kind of followed the same plot line. Like, we got the introduction to the characters. Well, okay, before we get to the introduction of the characters, both things did start with Keiichi swinging down his bat in the beginning sequence of Onikakushi. Okay, I'm gonna talk more about that scene later because I want to do a quick overview before I, go a little bit more in depth. So yeah, we get introduced to Keiichi after the weird foreground sequence before everything begins. Or is it a previous timeline of a single event? Okay, I won't go into that. Okay, that's for the end of the video. Okay. I'm getting messy with this layout, so I'm gonna skip the whole overview section, and I'm gonna jump right into the analysis scene by scene, because I just want to get to that, because I want to talk about things. I'm just on the Funimation Higurashi When They Cry page. Yes, I did sell my soul to the devil, and have a year subscription to Funimation. Maybe I should just clarify this now. I don't hate Funimation. I criticize them a lot, but I don't actually dislike them. They may be the devils of the western side of the anime industry sometimes, but they still do some pretty good stuff. Sometimes. This was the exact thing I wanted to talk about first and foremost, because, as soon as I saw Keiichi scratching at his neck, I was just thinking back in my head, oh, I am liking this foreshadowing. Like, okay, I think some people might be a little bit annoyed that they're already showing the, him scratching his neck, but as someone who's like me, I actually enjoyed this scene. I actually enjoyed this little, sequence of showing him actually scratching at his neck, because it just gives a good foreshadow for, what is to come at the end of this arc. Now, it may, for some people, may seem like a little bit of maybe a bad decision to show him scratching at his neck. I think it was actually a good idea as a clever piece of foreshadow for, what he may be doing very soon. Alright, so the next thing I wanted to point out that I really liked about this episode was the individual scenes of each and every one of the characters waking up in the morning. I don't know, but I just like seeing Keiichi, and then Rena making food for, lunch that day, Mion setting up her hair, and Satoko and Rika getting ready to go to school. Like, I just like seeing each and every one of them, getting ready for their day at school. I don't know. That's just a weird thing that I just like to point out and state. I really like that moment, because it's just that I feel it gives more of an insight of this series is not just about Keiichi Maibara. Keiichi Maibara may be the main character of Onikakushi, but he is not the main character of Higurashi overall. Arguably, I believe Rika's the main character. Even though Keiichi is the first main character to be introduced, the real main character is Rika. But okay, I really want to talk about some Rika stuff, but I'm saving my stuff about Rika for the end of this video, so stay tuned. Surprisingly, in this adaptation, unlike the Dean, we were able to see Keiichi's mom's face. Now, this gets me to thinking, I think they're going to be basing her design off of what she looks like in the manga adaptations of Higurashi When They Cry. If they're basing her design off of the manga, does that mean we're gonna get an anime adaptation of Keiichi's dad in the manga style? Like, oh man, I am looking really forward to seeing Mr. Maibara animated in the style he was in for each and every one of the manga adaptations. Like, the Studio Dean half-faced shown old man they showed of Keiichi's dad? No. Get that shit out of my face. I want to see the Chad that was in the manga. So yeah, seeing Keiichi's mom's face and seeing that her design is slightly looking like the manga adaptation of the Higurashi series, I am getting a little bit, excited to see if they're gonna do the same for Keiichi's dad. We then have Keiichi walking with Rena and Mion to school. There's not too much I would like to comment about this scene because, there's not much to comment on. Other than that, it just looks like another readaptation of the, walking to school scene from the visual novel. Now, this is another scene that I like to, get some point outs too. Keiichi defeating the traps of Satoko to fall for the last one. That moment of the show. Passione did it so well. Gosh, yeah, maybe it's not as intense as it was in the visual novel. I felt like this scene was still just as hype, even though it's not as intense. It's still pretty hype as Keiichi's like, oh ho ho, Satoko, I see what you're doing. And he is so smug in this scene that I had a little bit of a chuckle when his face was about to land in the inkwell. Like, ah man, I really enjoyed this scene. That scene in general just solidified that Studio Passione is going to do great in the slice-of-life moments of Higurashi. The horror, I'll get to that in a second, but I'm having a little bit of a concern for the horror elements, but they haven't gotten too much into horror in this first episode, so yeah, there's not much to comment on the horror, but I'll get to it once we get to those scenes. Oh yeah, Rika and Satoko's introduction, I thought that was adorable. Well, almost every scene with Satoko is adorable in this new anime. Like, okay, if there's one character that Studio Passione is doing a lot of great detail to, it's Satoko and Rena. Rena, they're going really hard on the Kaiute mode, for which, it feels like they put 25% of their animation budget onto Rena whenever she goes into Kaiute mode. Alright, so the next scene is them going to the shrine grounds to have a picnic, and I don't have too many comments about them walking to the, shrine, because there's not a lot to say about them walking to the shrine, but I do have some things to say about when they are eating at the shrine, and I'm gonna say this now. The scene where Satoko and Keiichi are eating and fighting, it's like, okay, it's not like they put a lot of focus onto that scene. Like, it's just more like a relaxing, oh yeah, they are fighting, but we're still gonna be quite relaxed for this scene. Like, it's not like, haha, I'm gonna grab this, or it's like nothing like, an actual, shonen anime food fight. No, it's actually more of a calm, relaxing, and I'm gonna be honest here, kind of a vibing picnic with a food fight between Satoko and Keiichi. It's just like you can get into a good mood and just relax and sit back as Keiichi and Satoko are, fighting over the food. Oh, yes! Okay, the next thing I'm going to talk about is the construction site scene where Keiichi and Rena visit the construction site. So, I'm going to have to say this now. They put a lot of detail to how Rena navigates through, the construction site in this new animation. And they put a lot of details to show that the construction site is not as dirty as a dump as, you would think for a dump. It's actually not that badly looking of a dump. It actually looks, kind of safe. But, that could give some key details as to, what Rena does on a daily basis, aka go to her mountain of treasure. Yeah, I'm liking the small little details, especially with Rena in this anime. Like, they put a lot of details into Rena's character that, I may not get into all the nuances in this video of how they did her character in this first episode, but I felt like they did her quite well. Like, much better than the Studio Dean adaptation, and much better than the manga adaptation of Onikakushi. Alright, I knew how to get to the subject sooner or later, but Tomitake. I feel like his face is too old. I don't know, like, I know that a lot of people have actually stated how much they like this new design of Tomitake, and I'm gonna be honest here, his build is amazing. Like, the build they gave him, that's actually a really good build for Tomitake. He's definitely a sex man. Though I feel like he is slightly older looking compared to, you know, what we saw of Irie and Takano, with Oishi looking younger than him. If Oishi looks the same age or younger than a character, you made the character too old looking. Tomitake warns Keiichi... not warns Keiichi. Tomitake mentions the dismemberment incident. Yeah, he mentions that's Keiichi, and I don't have any more comments about that scene. It's basically a little bit of a redone version of the, scene from the Studio Dean adaptation. But the next thing I'm gonna point out is actually one of the first kind of spooky moments in this new anime. The lead up to the scary scene, with Keiichi talking and the cicadas like slowly getting a little bit louder for them to suddenly go dead silent. As Rena says, I don't know. The pacing of the music cutoff I find to be a little bit jarring, but I felt like it could be done better. I felt like it could be great. And later in this episode, when they do it again with Mion, perfectly timed. But with this first scene with Rena, the timing was just like 1 second off. Like, if there was like 1 extra second of cicadas right before Rena says, I don't know, that would have been great. Like, I felt like the timing was by 1 second off. Don't get me wrong, this had a good build-up. It's just that it fell flat due to 1 minute less of the build-up. If there was 1 more second, not minute, second, that build-up would have been amazing to that scene. Okay, this next scene, okay, I'm gonna be honest here. I like this scene. I like the new club activity scene. Like, they mentioned the card game that they played. Like, they didn't show the card game, sadly, for which, I kind of felt like they kind of missed out on such a great scene, because I felt like the scene of when they're playing Old Maid in Onikakushi, that was, like, one of the highlights of the first chapter with the club activities. Like, I liked how Keiichi was able to, dupe out the rest of the club. Like, I enjoyed how he was able to dupe out the rest of the club individual novel, and definitely in the manga they had that scene, but from what I remember, hold on, let me get to that scene. Okay, they did have the scene in the manga, but they kind of skimmed it. They kind of skimmed it in the manga. The whole, build up and the whole, actual card game fight scene. So yeah, definitely I'm kind of disappointed they didn't show the Old Maid scene, especially the punishment game, like the penalty game where they drew on Keiichi's face. Like, I'm disappointed they didn't show that, but their brand new scavenger hunt scene, I liked it. I really enjoyed the scavenger hunt scene. And instead of focusing on Mion, Rena, and Keiichi, they gave a great focus to Rika and Satoko in this scene. And I'm gonna be honest here, Onikakushi does not have a lot of Satoko and Rika. And it definitely needs a lot more of Satoko and Rika so that, you get to see their characters a little bit more early on. Because in the original Studio Dean adaptation, you didn't really get a sense for, too much of Satoko and Rika and their whole dynamic and their dynamic with the rest of the club. You didn't get to really see that too much except for through minor details. But this anime's attention to Rika and Satoko from the beginning, like even in the beginning sequence, where it shows them getting ready for school in the morning, like that was already a good sign that you're showing all 5 of the club members. The new scavenger hunt with them going around the school to find the marker that Mion hid, I felt like that was a really good scene. I felt like even though it's a short scene, I still enjoyed it very much the same. Even though I wish in the future that they, put a lot more focus into some of the club activities they do. Like, maybe do, like, half an episode based on a club activity. But this scene this scene was actually, the best that could have been done for this first episode's pacing. Because the first episode, I feel like the first episode of Higurashi is the best paced one from Studio Dean adaptation. Like, almost all their pacing is shit in the Studio Dean adaptation, except for the first one. So I'm kind of glad that Passione did the Dean formula for the first episode. I just hope that they don't do the rest of the formula for the rest of the episodes, because, we don't want a repeat of 2006, everyone. Let me go on to the punishment game segment, because Satoko wins the game, for which I got really happy, because I'm like, yay, Satoko wins! Not Mion, Rena, no! Not even Keiichi, no! Satoko wins! When she goes to, you know, do the punishment game to Rika. I just like it how, early in the episode when Keiichi was actually looking for the marker, we did get to see a slight glimpse as to, you know, Rika's plan ahead of time. For which, when I saw that, I'm like, I wonder what that box there is for. Like, I can understand him, like, I can understand the, you know, little bit of a nod to the locker where Satoshi's bat's in the first episode. Like, I enjoyed that nod. But when I saw that box, I'm like, why are they showing that box right now? And the reason for that box is Rika gives it to Satoko and pranks Satoko with her very own trap. For the trap master Satoko to fall for a trap as easy as that, I just smiled like an idiot, paused the video, and just like stared at Rika in just a proud smile, because it seems like Rika, in this adaptation, we're gonna see her have a little bit more of a playful personality, while also we get a few glimpses of her true personality. But we also get to see some of her playfulness that I am just... I am so happy we get to see her playfulness, and especially towards Satoko! Her playfulness towards Satoko, because of all the people in the Higurashi series that Rika loves the most, it's Satoko! And for her to do this little innocent prank on Satoko, it just made me so happy to see it in the first episodes. And the next scene is Keiichi and Mion walking home after that fun club activity. Wait, no. Before I get to that, I truly enjoyed the scene where we see Rena standing in silence watching what's going on. Perfect. That was just perfect. A perfect show of what is to come with Rena Ryugu. Now, I don't think they're gonna... Okay, I'm hoping that they actually don't go into Rena's character too much, because that'll be Tatari Kuroshi material. But if they show a little bit of a key points within Rena, you know, Rena's reactions, Rena's, you know, like a few Easter eggs and foreshadowing about Rena's, you know, internal personality, like the thing that she's trying to hide from the rest of the group, like all of her problems. I'm liking how they're showing an inference that Rena is a lot more deeper of the character than the, you know, Oshakai! I'm not pronouncing that right. I should just say Kaiu mode, yeah. No. They're showing that Rena is a lot more complex. Anyways, let me get back to the scene that I was about to talk about. Mion and Keiichi walking back from school. So basically, Mion talks about the dam protest, where she's like, we fought against the government before they could place a dam on our land, and yeah, it's a very similar scene to what we have seen in the visual novel, manga, and Dean adaptation. So I don't have too many comments other than this scene where Mion gets a little bit, serious. Now, unlike the Rena scene, the pacing of the music just cutting off right before we get a zoom in on Mion's face, where she says, wait, what did she say again? Did she say, I don't know? Of course not. Yeah, okay. When she says that, of course not, with that up close on her face, perfectly timed, perfectly framed, and it just gives me an indication of Passione may not be perfect with the spooky scenes, but they have the potential of making great spooky moments for Higurashi. Like, the pacing of the Mion saying, of course not. That's a 10 out of 10 moment. That's a 10 out of 10 moment as compared to the 6 out of 10 moment with Rena. Like, the pacing, on time. Like, the pacing was exactly perfect. So, yes, I have hope that Passione is going to do the spooky scenes some justice. So, they are showing some indications that they may be a little bit shaky on the spooky scenes, but they're showing indications that they may be a little bit shaky, but they're still gonna do the spooky scenes well. Yeah, okay, the last scene with Keiichi and Rena in the construction site. Very similar to the Dean adaptation, though they definitely, went for the approach of showing more of Keiichi, actually trying to help Rena by him moving the stuff around. Like, it definitely shows a little bit more that Keiichi is helping Rena than just doing a jump cut right to the next scene. No, you actually see him moving things out of the way and showing him actually, having a little bit of troubles getting the rubble out of the way to get to the Kenta-kun statue. I am liking the pacing of that moment because it gives an indication of the work that Keiichi is putting in to, help Rena. And as he's laying down exhausted after moving all that debris, junk, well, it's a dumping site, so it could be either debris or junk. But anyways, when Keiichi sees this pile of magazines as he goes to, look at the one about the dismemberment incident. As soon as I heard the original Higurashi no Nakukori ni opening, I just jumped up in excitement saying, yes! Yes, they're playing the opening! They're playing the song! The song that defines Higurashi. Like, yes, I love the openings. Like, the openings to the visual novels for the PS3 editions. Those are hype. But nothing is Higurashi without the original anime opening. And I got really excited when they played the old opening over the credits for this episode. And I don't know if they're gonna be, doing a remake of the original first opening of Higurashi, but if they do, I'll be okay with it. Like, if they do a remake of the original opening, I kind of want to see how they will do it. Like, I want to see how they will do it. But anyways, the scene where Keiichi is looking at the magazines with Rena standing behind him with the hatchet didn't really leave too much of an impression. Like, it was well animated and it was really good, but I don't have too much to comment about it, actually. It's just Rena looking down at Keiichi with the hatchet in her hand. But the after credits, that's what took me for a loop. The after credits where we get a zoom out from someone watching what's going down in the garbage dump to see Rika with red eyes watching over the scene of Rena watching over Keiichi as he reads the magazine. I'm gonna be honest here. This is kind of silly. It's not scary, it's kind of silly. Or maybe this is just me speaking as a, a fan of Higurashi for a long time, but I just thought the sequence was a little bit silly, though. I kind of like the, small little, hint about Rika's, true storyline. Like, her true personality and her true storyline. Like, I like the early on hint of that. Though, I kind of also have to believe that they kind of, made this scene to be a little bit too silly. Say what you want to say what you think about this whole Rika and after credits scene down in the comments down below, but I just have to say, this is kind of silly. Like, that scene was kind of silly, though I love it all the same. But that's just because I've been a fan of the series for a long time. That's why I have this opinion. So I want to see your opinions down in the comments below. I feel like Passione delivered for this first episode. Like, they started off great with this first episode. There are some minor things they could have done better, but I think they started off strong by doing the pace that Studio Dean did for the first episode of Higurashi that they did in 2006. Like, that pacing is what got me hooked into the show in 2012. So, for them to do the same pacing in 2020, they did a great job in doing that. They gave a good job in showing the characters, the slice of life elements, and the mystery that's building up within the series, and with a little bit of spookiness. Now, I do not wish for them to continue on with the Dean pacing, because I want them to slow down after this first episode. Like, it's good that they did this sort of pacing for the first episode, but for the rest of the episodes, don't do this pacing, please. We do not want a repeat of Studio Dean's tragedy. My thoughts on this new first episode. It's promising. Like, the trailers were promising to begin with, but after seeing this first episode, I have a good feeling for this anime. Now, I'm nervous about the pacing, but that's the only thing I'm nervous about, because the animation and the way they're adapting the original visual novels, it's a 9 out of 10. Like, everything is a 9 out of 10. the soundtrack, I don't mind the soundtrack. Like, the soundtrack, yeah, it's definitely not the original soundtrack from the visual novels, but, the original soundtrack from the visual novels, those are royalty-free songs, so I could bet that they wanted to do their own composition for this new season of the show. So yeah, the music of the show is really good. It's 10 times better than the Dean soundtrack, because the Dean barely had a soundtrack for Higurashi. It's mostly ambience. No, I want actual music for a soundtrack, so they already did better than Dean soundtrack-wise, because they actually have a soundtrack other than, you know, regular ambience like the Dean adaptation. The Dean adaptation, the ambience gives the whole show is a different feeling than this new 2020 adaptation. Like, the 2020 adaptation feels very different compared to the Dean, despite how they're practically the same thing, these first episodes. They're practically the same thing. But this 2020 version, I felt like did it better. So throughout this first episode, we're already getting clear indications about Rika's time loop. We're already getting clear indications that Rika could be into a time loop. For those, you know, who are familiar with the series, we were able to see some of the, you know, small little pokes and prods towards Rika's true storyline. And throughout this, you can definitely see the complexity of Rika from the beginning, for which has not happened in any other adaptations, and in my honest opinion, I like it. I like it, because it just kind of feels like this new adaptation is already showing a little bit of Rika's, you know, loss of hope due to, you know, the constant time loop she's in. And, I feel like for this beginning part of the Higurashi anime, this 2020 edition, I feel like this version of Onikakushi that they're showing is a later loop Onikakushi. Now, hear me out on this. So, the visual novel, I feel like that's like one of the first timelines of what happens in Higurashi no Rakukou ni. Like, that's one of the first timelines, with the Studio Dean adaptation being also early, but also a little bit later variation of Onikakushi towards the beginning of Rika's time loop. Now, the manga in this adaptation of the anime, I feel like these are like, you know, the later loops with the Onikakushi story, because Rika has relived this over and over again because of her time loop. And I feel like from this first episode, we can see that this might be one of Rika's later loops with the similar Onikakushi storyline. Now, this is just a joke of mine. This is just a joke and theory of mine, but it feels like this is a later loop for Rika. That's why we're seeing a little bit more of the, you know, foreshadowing of her real storyline, which will be revealed in Minagoroshi. Yeah, it's a little bit early to, you know, show some hints as to Rika's true storyline. Like, it may be a little bit early for these hints, but I appreciate them. And with that, I shall end this video right here, right now. So thank you all for watching this video. I'll be back next week to commentate on episode 2 of Higurashi no Nakakori ni 2020. And yeah, if you like this video, leave a like, share your opinions about this new first episode down in the comments below. I'll read every single comment, unless this video really blows up, then I apologize if I don't get to your comment, because YouTube comments, there can be a lot within, you know, a big video. So I'm going to try to get to every single one of your comments to see your own opinions about this first episode, because I want to know, what do you all think about this first episode? Please tell me down in the comments below, and thank you all for watching. Leave a like, leave a comment, share your opinions in the comments below, subscribe if you somehow like this content I'm making. If you like it, subscribe, and I will see you all next time. Leave a like, leave a comment, share your opinions down below in the comments, subscribe if you like this content, and I'll see you all next time. I'll see you all next time. Okay. I can't do it.
OK, OK.